Okay, so now that we've got dir contents, we want to loop through this array. So we want to loop through the array and display the files out whilst checking if they are first of all not dot or double full stop, and then we also want to check that the file type is in the array. So to loop through an array, we use the for each language construct. So we use for each, and I'll explain just about this in a moment. In here we need to first of all specify the array that we're accessing, which is dir contents, and then we need to say it as something. And what this is basically going to do is for every dir content as something, we can use that second variable to access each element. So I'm going to say as file. Now as we loop through this, we can use echo to, or anything really, to echo out the file. So we can say echo file, and then I'm just going to append a line break onto the end of there. So for every element in dir contents which we are going to name file, we want to echo that file out. So let's go ahead and refresh, and you can see that we've got a list of files, including the dots because we haven't yet filtered them out. We've also got htaccess and document.txt, which we also want to filter out a bit later on. So we're only going to be displaying images with an accepted file extension, and we also want to remove these as well. So now that we do that, we know that we can access each file individually through this loop. So the first thing we want to go ahead and do is determine the file type of the current file. So I'm going to say file underscore type equals, I'm going to set this to explode the array. Explode the string into an array. Now this might seem a little bit odd, but I'll go ahead and demonstrate this as well as I can. So I'm going to use the explode function. Don't worry about this first string just a moment, but the thing that we're exploding is the file, and we want to use a delimiter to explode by something, and that's a dot. Now I'm just going to come down here. If you think about a file, for example car.jpg, if we were to perform the explode function on this using the delimiter as a dot, what this would essentially do is it would remove the dot, but each sort of part of the file that's separated by a dot, or each part of the string that's separated by a dot, will be placed into a different element in the array. So that's sort of the way you can think about it. For now I'm going to go ahead and just say let's just say print our file type, and we can we'll just say print our file type. This is going to look a bit odd, but you'll sort of see what I mean. Okay, so for example, the first file was the dot, so we've got nothing. The second file here was a double dot, so we've also got nothing. And then we've got htaccess, but this array here is the first image, and you can see what I mean. We've got art, and then we've got jpg. So for each one of these images, car.jpg, house.jpg, and these three basically, what we want to do is we want to access the last element of the array. So let's get rid of printar. What we can do is we can use the end function to basically take the last element of the array and actually convert it to string. So we now have sort of a string representation of this. So if I were to say echo file underscore type and then a line break, you can see that we'll be given a list here. We've got htaccess because that's a .htaccess extension. We've got JPEG, JPEG, text, and JPEG. So we know the file types of each file. So now that we know the file types, we can compare them with the values in this array using the inArray function, and we can actually determine if we want to display the file or not. So now what we want to do is we want to obviously sort of get rid of the fact that we don't want to display the dot and the double dot. So we create an if statement just down here, and remember this if statement here and this file type variable will be assigned for each loop of this for each construct, for each language construct. So what we can do is we can say if file doesn't equal a dot and the file doesn't equal a double dot, then I'm going to say echo let's say echo file. So now what's going to happen is, you saw earlier we just echoed out file, and we were sort of displayed with that dot and then double dots. Now what's going to happen is, it's only if the file doesn't equal a dot or doesn't equal a double dot. So when we refresh now, let's just add a line break on the end of there. Now when we preview that in our browser, we have the dot and the double dot removed. So if we didn't have this line here and we didn't have this line here, we would see the double dots there. So that's filtered out the double dots. Now what we need to do is ensure that we don't display files that aren't within our scope of accepted file types. Now the last thing, well, before when I spoke about capitalization of these file extensions, you'll often find that you'll have capitalization of file extensions you know, in certain scenarios. So what we want to do is, for this file type, we want to use the str2lower function, and that will just convert the file type that we've retrieved from each file to a lowercase string. So even if the file contained an uppercase JPG, it would then be converted to lowercase JPG, and therefore we can convert it properly, because the inArray function that we're going to be using in just a moment will not distinguish the difference between, well, it will view a JPG in lowercase different to a JPG in uppercase. So what do we want to do now? We've already echoed out our list of files excluding the dots, so we want to filter out only file types that we accept. Now all my images are .jpg, so we can't really sort of test it with PNG and GIF and the JPEG, but this doesn't matter, it gives you a general idea of how we do this. We want to add a logical AND operator to this, and we want to use the inArray function. Now, inArray function, if a specific string is found within an array, it will echo or return true. If it's not found, it will return false. So the first parameter here is the thing that we're looking for inside of the array, the needle as such. So we're going to say file underscore type. So we're looking for the file type that we have retrieved from each file, and we're looking inside file display, which is obviously the list of files that we're accepting. Now if this equals true, we can go ahead and echo out the file. If it doesn't equal true, this line will not be run. So we don't run this line if, for example, we have a .txt or an htaccess file. So let's go ahead and refresh, and you'll see that htaccess and document.txt will disappear because we filtered them out on the fly as such. So now that we've done this, and we've seen in our browser that we've only taken specific files of a specific type, and we've excluded this dot and this double dot, we can go ahead and, instead of just echoing out the file, we can echo it out as an image. So let's go ahead and, just inside of this if statement, let's echo out just image tags that we would normally use. So image source and alt. And inside of the source, obviously we want the source to the file. So this is inside the dir that we're scanning. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and include the dir and then a / and then the file name. So let's go ahead and just concatenate on dir. And then just after that we want to say / and then we want to go ahead and concatenate on the image name, which is just file. Inside alt, I'm just going to place the file itself, the file name itself, just because it's required inside of an image tag. So let's preview the changes in our browser. You can now see that we've got 3 images being displayed next to each other. Obviously it's up to you how you want to display these images. You could change the code here, you know, just things like that, the way that they're displayed. You could do it on a line by line basis. And that's basically it. We've taken a variable name up here, which is the file name. We've scanned through, excluded what we don't need, and then we've output the images from that particular directory.